Hello, I'm Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub, taking you beyond the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be and opening up to new possibilities. What gives me a buzz is to make people think and feel differently, to experience the world differently. I love learning, and as a seeker and explorer, I've traveled far and wide, spending over 30 years studying with many wonderful teachers and masters, learning to utilize many different tools, many different techniques to create rapid shifts. I'm the author of You, the Divine Genius, and my passion, my desire, is to create opportunities for an expansion of awareness and consciousness, to allow you to step into a fuller focus of who you really are. This podcast is an advocate for awakening, encouragement, and supporting the development of your superhuman abilities. Just imagine how your life would change if you lived in an open state of awareness where anything is possible. Do you wake up with an alarm clock at the same time every day? Do you leap out of bed and greet the day? Or do you hit the snooze button and grab another few minutes? Traffic lights. When you see a red traffic light, you stop, right? And what about at work when a meeting is called? Do you think, great, an opportunity to share my creative ideas? Or is it more like, oh no, not another meeting? Or perhaps somebody looks at you in a certain way and your heart just melts. Or maybe it's the opposite and you feel a sense of dread. These are all examples of conditioned response. For example, the alarm clock is the trigger. What's your conditioned response? And with traffic lights, a red traffic light is a trigger and you've been conditioned to respond with stop and then go for green, right? So are we simply lean, mean, conditioned response machines, programmed to respond automatically to specific triggers? Well, the field of cybernetics explores communication and control in living organisms and machines, raising many provocative questions about the nature of human behavior. One theory being that we might be akin to sophisticated robots, meticulously conditioned to respond in predetermined ways. This perspective challenges traditional ideas of free will and autonomy, suggesting that our actions and reactions are governed by a complex interplay of stimuli and response, much like a programmed machine. In this podcast, I'll be delving into the unsettling idea of mass programming and the idea of humans as programmable entities that have been manipulated and controlled. What I can guarantee is that it will prompt reflection on the intricate dance between external influences and the intricacies of your own consciousness. Have you ever thought back to your school days and wondered whether what you learnt has really proved to be relevant and useful in your life? I know I have, and I've also wondered why we were never taught life skills or how the mind works, how to develop our natural psychic abilities, the wonders of our physicality and the ability the body has to heal itself, or even learn things like speed reading. You see, I believe that you, and in fact everyone, have incredible abilities, skills, gifts and talents, and that through the very nature of the education system, you've been systematically dumbed down and taught a history that may or may not be true. And if that is the case, then how were the conditioned responses created? And more pertinent to this podcast would be, by whom? Have you heard of the Tavistock Institute? Probably not, and the name certainly doesn't conjure up anything that would cause you to raise your eyebrows. Yet there's more to this institute than you might imagine. The Tavistock Institute in London was originally called the Tavistock Clinic, founded in 1921, and at that time often referred to as the Freud Hilton, as Sigmund Freud's daughter, Dr. Anna Freud, became a leading figure there. It was later taken over by Dr. John Rawlings Rees, a key figure in British Army intelligence and previously a top psychiatric warfare specialist. Upgraded in 1947, to the outside world, the Tavistock Institute was known as a social science research organisation. Yet underneath this facade, its main purpose has been that of mass programming and the manipulation of human behaviour. Tavistock engages in social engineering projects to shape public opinion, control societal norms, and influence political outcomes. And the Institute's work in the field of social science and psychology is often cited as evidence of its alleged influence over public behaviour. Of course, there are other such organisations such as the Frankfurt School and the Geneva-based International Foundation for Development and Alternatives and Executive Conference Centre. Oh, that's a mouthful. And this was the first graduate school charged with teaching behaviour modification for high-level executives from Fortune's top 500 companies. In other words, specific humans trained and placed at top-level management positions to lead you into this new age. Did you know that over a time period of 50 years, a huge amount of funding has been allocated into some of these other foundations who are aligned with the Tavistock Institute in terms of the mental and psychological life of people on the planet? And guess what? All that information is stored in computer systems. So what's the purpose of this monitoring, profiling, and behaviour modification? Is it all to support you to live a healthier, wealthier, and happier life? Sadly, these manipulations are to change your way of life and to tear apart your inner sense of identity and shift you further and further away from your sovereignty. After all, true sovereignty lies not in popular opinion, but in the creative powers of the individual human mind. Now, the concept of mass programming through subliminal messages has been a subject of intrigue and concern for some time, delving into the realm of psychology, media manipulation, and societal influence. At the forefront of this topic is the pervasive nature of television programming, a powerful medium that's been scrutinized for its potential to shape public opinion as well as behavior. Edward Bernays, often regarded as the father of modern propaganda and public relations, he's the one who played a pivotal role in understanding and utilizing the psychology of the masses for influencing choices. Edward Bernays was based in America, and he was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And in fact, Sigmund Freud would probably not be renowned worldwide as the founder of psychoanalysis had his nephew not had his book translated from his native Austrian language and then created a campaign to raise awareness in the USA. Edward Bernays, drawing on the pioneering ideas of his uncle Sigmund Freud, applied psychological principles to share public opinion and behavior. Bernays believed in the malleability of the masses, asserting that individuals could be guided and controlled through the strategic use of information. His work in the early 20th century laid the foundation for understanding the psychological underpinnings of human behavior, literally paving the way for the sophisticated techniques employed now by advertisers, politicians, and media entities in the decades that followed. Now, although I've spoken about Edward Bernays in earlier podcasts in terms of conditioned response, A notable example of his orchestrated campaigns would be the Torches of Freedom campaign back in 1929 for the American Tobacco Company. In the late 1920s, smoking in public was largely considered a taboo for women, and there was a societal stigma associated with it. Bernays was tasked with expanding the market for Lucky Strike cigarettes to include women. Now, leveraging his understanding of psychology, he sought to associate smoking with ideas of freedom, ideas of empowerment. So what he did was Bernays strategically organized the 1929 Easter Sunday parade in New York, where he orchestrated a surprise and groundbreaking event. What he did was he arranged for a group of debutantes to march in the parade openly smoking Lucky Strike cigarettes as a symbol of women's liberation. To enhance the impact, he coined the phrase Torches of Freedom to link smoking with the concept of emancipation. The campaign successfully tapped into the feminist movement of the time and then played a pivotal role in breaking down the societal barriers against women smoking in public. Now, this campaign exemplifies Bernays' adept use of psychological tactics, media influence, and strategic alliances to shape public perceptions and behaviors, showcasing the power of public relations in molding societal norms and consumer choices. He also played a significant role in shaping a number of political campaigns, and one of the most notable instances was his involvement in the 1954 overthrow of the democratically elected government in Guatemala, and I encourage you to research that one. There's actually a 4-part BBC documentary called The Century of Self that is definitely worth watching. Back to the biggest hypnotist in the world. Well, it's an oblong box that tells people what to believe. Television, with its reach into so many homes, creates the basis for mass brainwashing and mass programming. And there's a reason shows are called television programs. You may not realize it, but your mind is being shaped and molded every time you turn on your television or smart devices. Television, as a ubiquitous presence in modern life, serves as a conduit for disseminating information, entertainment, and cultural narratives, because beneath its surface lurks the subtle influence of subliminal messaging, a technique aimed at bypassing the conscious mind to implant ideas or suggestions directly into the unconscious mind. The use of rapid flashes, embedded symbols, and carefully crafted visual and auditory cues in television programming has definitely sparked debates about the ethical implications of manipulating public perceptions. Did you know that when you watch TV, the right hemisphere of your brain is twice as active as the left, which is a neurological anomaly? The crossover from left to right actually releases a surge of the body's natural opiates, endorphins and enkephalins. Endorphins are structurally identical to opium and its derivatives, which include morphine, codeine, and even heroin. In other words, your TV works as a very, very efficient drug delivery system. Now, another effect of watching TV is that the higher brain regions, such as the midbrain and the neocortex, are actually shut down. And most activity shifts to the limbic system, your lower brain region. The lower or reptilian brain simply stands poised to react to the environment using deeply embedded fight or flight response programs. And what's more, these lower brain regions can't distinguish reality from fabricated images. So they react to television content as though it were real, releasing appropriate hormones as well. And there's more to this. Studies have proved that over time, too much activity in the lower brain leads to atrophy in the higher brain regions. Now, while this may be new information to you, I'm pretty sure that the people who brainwash you on a daily basis not only know this, they also use it. So how does this relate to your reality? In a 1981 interview, Hal Becker from a think tank called Futures Group said he knew the secret of making the average American believe anything he wanted him to. He said, "Simply let me control television. You put something on television and it becomes reality. So if the world outside the TV set contradicts the images, people start trying to change the world to make it like the TV set images. And the thing is, television is not the truth, although people keep tuning into its lies. Television is really like an amusement park, yet people have been completely hypnotized by this oblong box. Think about it. Billions of people tune into award shows or news channels, prepared to believe what this oblong box tells you. So you see, TV provided an ideal means to create a mass culture in which popular opinion could be shaped and controlled so that everyone in a country would think the same. And consider this, a huge number of people get all their information from television, and I'm also going to include channels on the internet as well. In fact, the only truth most people know is what they get over the internet or on television. Television, and now the internet, with their ability to reach millions simultaneously, became a very powerful tool for implementing Bernays' ideas. Advertisements, news broadcasts, and entertainment programs began subtly incorporating elements designed to influence attitudes and beliefs. The blurred line between content and advertising, often unnoticed by viewers, underscores the effectiveness of subliminal messages in shaping collective consciousness. So let me talk a little about subliminal messaging and how it works. As I mentioned earlier, subliminal messages are stimuli or information presented below the threshold of conscious awareness, potentially influencing behavior and attitudes without you being consciously aware of it. Of course, the darker implications of subliminal messages include ethical concerns. Lack of consent is a key issue, as you're being influenced without being informed. A couple of noteworthy films have explored and even sensationalized the idea of mass programming through subliminal messaging, offering a cinematic lens through which to examine this phenomena. One of the most powerful movies about subliminal messages and mass programming that you may have come across is called They Live, and it's a 1988 film. You can actually find the entire film available on YouTube. This film follows a drifter who travels to Los Angeles in search of a job. While out on the street, he comes across a street preacher warning that the rich and powerful have been recruited to control humanity. That night, a hacker takes over television broadcasts, claiming that scientists have discovered signals that are enslaving the population and keeping them in a dreamlike state, and that the only way to stop it is to shut off the signal at its source. Those watching the broadcast complain of headaches. Now, the following day, the drifter manages to retrieve a box from where the broadcast took place, and he takes a pair of sunglasses. He discovers that the sunglasses make the world appear monochrome, in other words, in black and white. but it also reveals subliminal messages in the media to consume, obey, reproduce, and conform. The glasses also reveal that many people are actually aliens with skull-like faces. Another iconic example is the dystopian classic A Clockwork Orange from 1971, directed by Stanley Kubrick and based on the Anthony Burgess novel. These cinematic portrayals underscore the underlying unease within society regarding the potential for mass programming through subtle, unseen influences. And then there's music and music videos. In his book, The Music of Time, Preston B. Nichols talks about encoding thought forms into music and calls this electromagnetic telepathy. Now, just for a moment, consider that our reality or reference frame for consciousness is based purely on sounds, notes, and tones. All of these aspects are frequencies. In fact, every physical object or manifestation you can conceive of conforms to a frequency or can be identified as having a specific frequency. By playing with certain frequencies, you can induce riots or raucous behavior. Conversely, you could subdue a wild crowd by the same methods. The idea is the same. The idea in mind control is to jam the neural network and stop it from its normal functioning. Now, loud music in itself can do that, but it can also be used to lay encoded messages. So here's a scientific fact. A normal heart beats at about 70 beats per minute. If a drummer beats at 80 beats a minute, what's going to happen? The heart rate is going to rise to 80 beats a minute too. Of course, if you drop to a slow beat, then after a while it will have a hypnotizing effect and literally slow your heart rate down. This is the whole idea of using music, sound, and frequencies as a method of mood control. And it also highlights how sensitive the neural network is to music, sound, and frequencies. And just watch the recent release on Netflix, Leave the World Behind, that highlights the effect of frequencies. In close collaboration with the Tavistock Institute, philosopher of modern music and Frankfurt School leader Theodor Adorno stated that the purpose of modern music is to literally drive the listener insane. He continued, "It's not that schizophrenia is directly expressed therein, but the music imprints upon itself an attitude similar to that of the mentally ill." So be careful what you're listening to, especially when you consider that you're bombarded with sound in every shopping mall, every restaurant and store, non-stop. Of course, by now it's well known and common knowledge that many governments have implemented mind control projects, two of which include MKUltra and Project Stargate. Now, these clandestine initiatives conducted by the United States government involved highly controversial and ethically questionable experiments aimed at understanding and manipulating the human mind. MKUltra was officially sanctioned by the CIA in the 1950s, and it was a secret program that sought to explore the possibilities of mind control, behavior modification, and interrogation techniques. Now, what was required of MKUltra was the ability to manipulate memory, and the project involved a range of experiments, many of which were conducted without the knowledge or consent of the subjects. Techniques explored under MKUltra included the use of psychoactive drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and other forms of psychological torture. The project also delved into developing techniques for erasing and implanting memories. Does that remind you of the movie Inception? MKUltra's existence remained a closely guarded secret until the 1970s, when investigations by the US Congress brought it to light. And the revelations led to, at that time, public outrage and congressional hearings exposing the extreme and unethical nature of the experiments. Project Stargate was another top-secret program initiated by various US government agencies, including the CIA and DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, back in the 1970s. Now, this project focused on the investigation of psychic phenomena, in particular remote viewing, the ability to gather information about distant or unseen targets through extrasensory perception, ESP. The US military was interested in the potential applications of psychic abilities for intelligence gathering and military purposes. The program involved a group of psychics and remote viewers who possessed the ability to see events, locations, or information beyond their normal sensory perceptions. And notable interviews such as remote viewer Ingo Swann were enlisted to participate in experiments aiming to harness these psychic talents for military use. You may also have heard of Uri Geller, who became famous for spoon bending. He was also involved in Project Stargate. This project operated for over 2 decades, officially ending in 1995. Now, both MKUltra and Project Stargate highlight the ethical and moral dilemma associated with the pursuit of mind control. An early victim of MKUltra mind control programming is a woman called Kathy O'Brien, and I highly recommend you read one of her books called Transformation of America. It will literally blow your mind, and the book doesn't hold back on naming names, as well as the long path to deprogramming and healing massive trauma. Transformation of America was released in 1995, and it's now in its 16th English edition. It's even referenced in major universities, and it's in law libraries worldwide due to its continued relevance to global events. So remember here, knowledge is your first line of defense against mind control. Think of it like that image that you may have come across that contains both an old woman and a young woman. Initially, when you look at the image, you may only see one image, either that of the old woman or the young woman. However, on deeper inspection and a change of perception, you'll see both images, the old woman and the young woman, and once you see both, you'll always see both. You've expanded your awareness. So here we are, and it would seem that the world was accurately predicted in Aldous Huxley's book, Brave New World, published all the way back in 1961, where he spoke of a world of pharmacologically manipulated slaves living in a concentration camp of the mind, enhanced by propaganda and psychotropic drugs, learning to love their servitude and abandoning all will to resist. Then there's George Orwell's dystopian novel, 1984. And incidentally, both Aldous Huxley and George Orwell were members of the Fabian Society, which is likely where they derived the information for their so-called novels and books. Orwell's book, 1984, turned out to be not some distant future probability, because it's already here, perhaps a little later than anticipated, and here nevertheless. So what can you do? Is it all doom and gloom? Well, let me leave you with a story and some final thoughts. Imagine, if you will, a mythical city called Concordia, where a mysterious force called the Whisper united minds, bringing apparent harmony. But a group called the Awakened sensed manipulation and, armed with knowledge, spread awareness and resistance against the whisper. Concordia faced a choice: continue controlled unity or embrace individuality. The awakened celebrated diversity, creating a vibrant community, and eventually the whisper weakened. Concordia transformed into a thriving city where true unity came from accepting differences. The power of awakened minds proved to be strong, showing that awareness and knowledge can break the chains of mass control. Remember, in the tapestry of knowledge and beliefs that shape your understanding of the world, there lies a powerful invitation to question what you've been taught, to question what you've been told. Embracing a curious and inquisitive spirit is not a rejection of wisdom, but it's a celebration of the human capacity to grow and evolve. When you challenge assumptions, you pave the way for new insights, deeper understanding, and the potential for transformative change. And it's through questioning that you unearth the gems of knowledge and discover the contours of your own convictions. I encourage you to embark on a journey of intellectual exploration, daring to challenge the status quo. For in the realm of questioning, you not only unlock the doors to progress, you also nurture the vibrant spirit of the collective consciousness. And as poet William Blake wrote, if the doors of perception were cleansed, all things would appear infinite. Thank you for tuning into this episode, and there is so much more to share with you. We've really just touched the tip of the iceberg, and I am delighted to be sharing possibilities with you. So if you want more, then check out the link to my website, thepossibilityhub.com, or tune in to my YouTube channels, The Possibility Hub or Carol Talbot, for new insightful interviews each week. If you feel that others can benefit from listening in, then please go ahead, share, review, or like, or follow me on Instagram, Carol K. Talbot. And remember, you're always more than you think you are.